I will now take the precedent for this meeting of the Planning Committee held on 21st of March 2023. The following members are present: Councillors Ali Callison, Ralph Barker, Arch Buchanan, Ross Clark, Jerry Convery, Margaret Cowie, Maureen Devlin, Mary Donnelly, Councillor Joe Fagan is not present. Following members are present: Councillors Gladys Ferguson-Miller, Elise Frame, Alistair Fulton, Shalene Handybode, Mark Horsham, Ross Lambie. We have apologies from Councillor Monique McAdams. Councillor Leslie MacDonald is not present. Following members are present: Councillors David McLaughlin, Richard Nelson, Norman Ray, John Ross. We have apologies from Councillor Dr Ali Salamati, and Councillor Julia Mars is attending as a substitute. And the following members are also present: Councillors Graham Scott, David Shearer, Helen Toner and David Watson. Thank you, and I'll now pass you back to the Chair for today's business.
Thank you, Stuart. Just before we start today's business, just want to remind everyone that the following email issued last week, that application P211764, agenda item 7, has been removed by the applicant, so it's no longer being discussed this morning, can be removed from your pack. Agenda item number 1, any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting submitted for approval as a correct record, pages 5 to 18 in your pack. I'll move that as correct.
I'll second that.
Anybody's otherwise minded? All agreed? Agenda item number 3 is the National Planning Framework 4 update, and that's pages 19 to 28 in your pack. And I'm going to ask Fraser to give us an update.
This report is seeking to provide an update to the committee on the transitional arrangements for the National Planning Framework. Also have an attached letter issued to all councils from the Minister from Planning, Tom Arthur, and the Chief Planner at the Scottish Government. Implication of the letter is that the confirmation that the National Planning Framework is now part of the Development Plan, and along with the Local Development Plan should be the basis on which decisions are made on planning applications. I would add that the National Planning Framework has been taken into consideration for all of the applications that are on the agenda today, but it's not had any material impact on the recommendations that are in the reports. The report is for noting. It will be followed in the months ahead by updated reports on new guidance and regulation as it emerges. Thank you.
Thank you, Fraser, and thank you again for giving the update to us last week. Found it very useful. I'm sure other members did as well. So, and going forward, I assume that we'll be getting regular updates from you, and possibly another seminar if we need to do so. Councillor David Watson.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. Just on 4.2, and I know this is all new, is on, I think, as councillors, we're trying to get our head around it, so I feel sorry for you guys trying to get your head around it. But it's saying here, potential conflict between policies can be expected, and in such cases, the factors for and against development should be weighed before coming to a judgment. What does that really mean? I mean, it's a bit subjective, that, and my understanding was MP F4 was, that was it. We'd to encompass it, but this is probably given a bit of wriggle room, a statement here, and I just try to understand what it is that saying. Thanks.
That was taken directly from the letter that came from the Chief Planner, as well as from the Minister. It effectively is saying that there is a potential for conflict between the national policy and local policies. The national policies should apply if that is the most up-to-date policy, and as you develop your local development plans, they will need to be brought forward in line with what's in national planning framework. I think at this stage there is a bedding in process that we're going to go through, so we're aware that that's the guidance that's coming from the Scottish Government. We are aware that other councils are wrestling with the policies within the national planning framework as well, but certainly the determining factor should be the national planning framework, and that's the one that should take precedence. And if it's at variance with your local development plan policies, So it is a bedding in period, Councillor, and I think we're all needed to be aware of this, and I think that's the importance of the training and the guidance as that comes forward as well. The taking the 33 policies into consideration in terms of with planning applications as well is going to be a challenge, but we'll look to provide you as members and the committee with as much guidance and support as we can around it. And the judgment ultimately sits with the decision maker, so it sits with the planning authority. But we do have to bear in mind that the priority goes with national planning framework, so that's the most relevant and up-to-date policy framework that we have just now.
Thank you, Fraser. Any other further questions? Okay, move to agenda item number 4 is... Oh, sorry, can we just move that as agreed? Agenda item number 3 agreed? Agreed. Agenda item number 4, changes to the general permitted development rights and use classes order update, pages 29 to 32 in your pack, and I'll ask Fraser to speak to that.
Yeah, once again, this report is presented as an update to members of the committee. Changes to the legislation around additional permitted development rights, the first of which is to do with electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and it's seen as a measure to assist in the rollout of this apparatus. The other update in terms of legislation allows changes of use in town centres to be undertaken for town centre uses without the need for a planning application, and a separate update is to remove the need for planning applications for street furniture that's attached to cafes licensed premises. It's within the context of trying to encourage activities into town and village centres, and it extends some of the legislation that was brought in during the COVID restrictions. I would stress with members as well that the controls in relation to the Road Scotland Act as well as licensing legislation will still apply. And as such, for members and communities, they will still have the opportunity to control inappropriate uses where the need arises. So this is presented to the board as the committee as an update to emerging legislation.
Thank you, Fraser. Any questions or comments? No. Thank you, Fraser. Everybody agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item number 5. Is the Legacy Applications Report. It's just pages 33 to 42 in your pack. Again, Fraser's going to speak to this.
Thank you. This report seeks to issue decisions on planning applications that the committee had previously been minded to grant, subject to the conclusion of associated planning obligations. Since being presented to the committee, little or no progress has been made in relation to the legal agreements that have been sought, and for this reason, in line with the relevant policies and legislations, the applications are now being brought back to committee with a recommendation for refusal. The 3 applications presented to the committee today have been assessed in relation to the new national planning framework, and there are no new policy issues in terms of the original decisions, and as such, no additional reasons for refusal are sought. Therefore, the committee are asked to refuse planning application P201847 for the reasons set out on page 37, planning application P210739 for the reasons set out on page 39, and planning application HM150487 for the reasons set out in page 41.
Thank you, Fraser. Any comments or? Councillor Allison.
Fraser, could you just confirm what communication is taken with the applicants to make sure there's no outstanding reasons as to why they haven't gone forward?
Yeah, the emails, contact, phone calls around it. In some instances that they're just not looking to pursue it. Whether it's the funding or the application is no longer proceeding. So we have sought to engage with applicants. But there's actually been a range of legacy applications which have now restarted again as a result of us instigating this process. So this is where there has been absolutely no contact, or where there's feedback around it is that they don't want to proceed. So that's why it seems appropriate here to bring it forward with recommendations for refusal. They can come back into us and talk about these applications in future around it if they want to restart them again. But the applications as they stand are no longer proceeding.
Okay. Thank you, Fraser. Does that give you some comfort, Councillor Alison? Any further questions or comments? Everybody agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6 is application P20, and it's pages 43 pages 43 to 58, and it's a detailed planning application at Gilbertfield Farm in Cambuslang. And Fraser again.
Thank you. The planning application P200548. It was consent was sought for the erection of 15 dwellings and associated work in an area of greenfield land adjacent to Gilbertfield Castle, which itself is a scheduled ancient monument. The proposal suggests the removal of a farmsteading, upgrading the single track access to the site and to carry out stabilisation works to the ancient monument. Responses to statutory consultations are set out in the report, and it is noted that Halfway Community Council sought to support the application while Cambuslang Community Council submitted an objection. 5 letters of representation were received. The details and comments are covered in section 5. In relation to the assessment of the application, the policies in the South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan and the National Planning Framework have been taken into account, and it's considered that the proposals do not comply with the relevant policies in that they are an inappropriate form of development within the Green Belt. They do not provide a suitable form of access to and from the site, and the scheme raises issues of potential flooding risk that once again lead to a recommendation for refusal. Finally, regarding the potential investment into Gilbertfield Castle, the application was not supported by sufficient information to determine the full extent and timing of works for the castle, and to this end, it did not provide a sufficient justification to deviate from the Greenbelt and detailed design policies in the development plan. Therefore, for the reasons set out in paragraph 7.1 and is listed on pages 55 and 56, the recommendation to the committee is that this application should be refused.
Thank you, Fraser. Any questions or comments? Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, can I thank Fraser for his report. Obviously, I support as a local member, I support the refusal here, but also want to give some a handout in many ways, or a support for the attempt by the applicant to try and do something with Gilbertfield Castle. Gilbertfield Castle is a gem. I was up there recently, and it's believed to be 1607. There's a keystone up there with the date 1607 on it, which at that time was either the date of the start of the project or the completion of the project. So we're looking at an amazing piece of Scottish history that I'm sorry to say, and Fraser might confirm, is sadly needing stabilisation and needing some tender love and care to try and bring it back to some form of being a community asset. To that point, kind of compliment, and anybody that knows me over the years, I've not been given to asking people to read letters from community councils, but there's an excellent letter from Halfway Community Council here about the asset that can be for the community and the support that's needed to try and bring Gilbertfield Castle back to some form of respectability in terms of as what it is, a national scheduled monument. I mean, my question, and obviously, can I say at this point, I've been working in cooperation with my colleague over the border in Cambuslang, Councillor Walter Brogan, about this, and we've spoken to officers inside planning about this. And I know Walter and I are thinking about doing a letter to Historic and Environment Scotland to try and find out what grants are available to the owner to try and get some investment to improve and do the stabilisation to the castle. And other elected members in the 2 wards are more than welcome to join us. My question for Fraser, and thank you, Chair, for indulging me here. My question to Fraser is there any way, what can we as a planning authority do in terms of our powers to either remind the owner of their obligations in terms of a national scheduled monument and, of course, a historic and site within our area? Thank you, Chair. If Fraser can answer that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Scott, and also for giving us a piece of history as well. So I'll ask Fraser, you want to just come back in?
Yeah, no, I agree. This is it's an important heritage asset, for South Lanarkshire and for the country, hence its national status as a Schedule Ancient Monument. I would completely support your suggestion there, Councillor, about the local members as well as the Community Council writing to Historic Environment Scotland about the importance of this as an asset, the opportunity it provides as being a community asset as well. From our side around it, there are powers that are available to the Planning Authority that we could seek to implement, but I think we would look to work with the owner positively at this stage, and I think it's looking to bring in funding from whatever body may be appropriate around it, and I think something that comes from the community itself as well as local members. I think that would more likely to generate some sort of support, buy-in from the Scottish Government as well. So I think we could hold action that we can take with the owner in reserve while we look at every opportunity to make the most out of this asset that, as we say, provides a rich heritage and story for a wide area, beyond just Cambuslang and halfway, but it really is something that's of importance to the country.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Fraser. Councillor Alec Allison.
Moving back onto the application itself, Fraser, take it from the application that the steading is no longer required for the business and farming terms. So what is the future of that site? Is it simply to be allowed to become derelict? Does that make it a brownfield site and change the issues? Or what is available for that site now?
In answer to the question, no, it doesn't revert to being a brownfield site. It remains a site within the Greenbelt. As it stands in terms as a housing site, it wasn't something that we felt as if there was evidence to, there wasn't enough evidence to justify a deviation from Greenbelt policy on that. There are a number of sites that are like this within the Greenbelt area, and there can be support around it, whether or not they can be used actively for agriculture, whether they can be used for some other appropriate business that's located within a green belt location. So I wouldn't necessarily say the only option now is to fall into dereliction. There are other opportunities that exist within our own local planning legislation as well as in the national planning framework that could support reuse of the property, and that's related to some sort of a business use around that as well. So we'll happily engage along with colleagues within the economic development with the owner around the site about other uses for it. But dereliction isn't just necessarily the only option around this.
Thank you. Any further comments? No. Happy to refuse detailed plan permission? Agreed. Agreed. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 8. That is application P221030, and it's pages 81 to 98 in your pack. And again, we'll ask Fraser to speak to this.
Thank you. This application it refers to the site of the former Netherburn Primary School. Consent has been sought for 18 dwellings in an area zoned for general urban use in the local development plan. No objections have been submitted from statutory consultees, subject to the implementation of appropriate conditions. 6 letters of representation have been received, the details of which are set out again in section 5, and a statement made in response which is reflected in the assessment of the proposal and the suggested list of conditions. It's considered the proposal accords with those set out in the approved South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan, as well as the National Planning Framework. The proposed layout is acceptable, and the applicant has agreed to enter into a legally binding agreement for a financial contribution for the upgrading of community facilities. So for this reason, the recommendation to committee is that the application should be approved, subject to conditions, and the successful completion of this legal agreement successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No, I just have one comment, Fraser, in that we did speak about the roads, and Stuart, I'd would like just a wee update on the roads. I know we did speak about just firming up the condition of the roads. Can you just give us an update on that, Stuart, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Condition number 10, we have adapted that condition from the previous draft, and it gives us flexibility to ensure that any construction traffic, particularly HGV traffic, is coming in from the B7078 onto Draffan Road and in towards the site. So we're fairly comfortable that once we engage with the developer in the submission of their traffic management plan, we'll we will have enough control to ensure that the site can operate safely.
Thanks, Stuart. It gives a bit of comfort knowing that there is a condition in there about the road, because I know there was a lot of local speculation as well. So thank you for firming that up. Everybody agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item number 9, application P221377 is pages 99 to 112 in your pack. It's for detailed plan application by the Walker Group in Cambuslang. And Fraser, please.
Relates to a site Manse, Brae, Cambuslang. It seeks to amend the mix of housing on a site to which planning permission was previously granted under application P200023. There are no changes to the access to the site or the landscaping scheme, open spaces or path network, but consent is sought to change the house types, which will remain a mix of detached and semi-detached properties. There were no objections from statutory consultees, but 2 letters of representation were submitted, the details of which are set out with a response provided to the points raised. The proposals don't raise any new issues from those that were considered under the original application, and the design and details comply with the relevant development plan policies. Therefore, for the reasons set out in paragraph 7 and subject to the conditions set out on pages 106 to 110, it is recommended that planning permission should be granted.
Thank you, Fraser. Any questions or comments? Everybody happy to agree?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 10. I don't have any items of urgent business. Just like to thank you all for attending this morning and Fraser for doing all the work today. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.